I believe the university is still involved in a Title IX suit against the cancellation of the women's wrestling team. That trial is supposed to begin in July. Do you know anything about the status of the university's case?
Because that's ongoing litigation, I can't talk about it, although I'm not personally involved in that case because it was before my time, so I really can't tell you anything.
Even though you can't talk about it, you actually don't know anything.
I really don't. It happened before my time. Yeah. Anything else? Yeah.
I think maybe one of the other silver linings that come out of this is that people get to see some uncommon courage and true leadership. And I'd like to know where you find the strength to do what you're doing.
Well, I'm a student athlete, was a student athlete. I really, at one time, thought it would be easier just to walk away from all this, and then I thought of all you. And I thought, how can I possibly let you down 700 strong? So that's my job. I'm not doing anything special. I'm just doing my job, but thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Kim. All right, our next faculty member to speak is Leslie Lyons. She's the head of the AC, which is the Athletic Academic Advisory.
Administrative.
Right.
It doesn't matter.
She can tell. All right. Thank you, Leslie.
Yes, I've been told the act kind of sounds like a hairball, which fits into place. So I'll introduce myself. I'm Leslie Lyons. I am a faculty member at the veterinary school. I'm a cat geneticist. And actually, I never played college level sports, but I'm from Pittsburgh, so I think enough said. I think I like to know a lot about sports. And I've been here at the campus for about 10 years. I did come from a Division I school. I went to the University of Pittsburgh. So when I came here, it was quite a different mentality to come onto this campus. But I was quite pleased that we moved to Division I, but there's still quite a different mentality in the faculty and in the surrounding community about sports that is quite different for me. So, of course, I'll just address the immediate question. I, too, was on the ICA work group as the chair of AC. And so, actually, if you take a look at that work group, only Dr. Elsbach and I are faculty members. And so, as a faculty member, I feel I do represent the students in some way, and I care about the student welfare, even though as AC, that's not my actual major charge. So overall, I completely concur with what Dr. Elsbach had to say about the committee. I did think I was walking into that committee to roll up my sleeves and work on some ideas. The criteria that were presented to us were criteria that were already used, so we did not really even have the ability to even modify those criteria quite much. But I think really we should be focusing on the first two criteria, and that is money and Title IX compliance. So I encourage you to focus on those aspects of the criteria, because that's really what it comes down to. We're in a financial crisis. What is the chancellor to do? The things we're facing in ICA are certainly things we're facing at the veterinary school and all over the campus. So there is a severe budget crisis. How do you solve that? All the rest of the matrix, I too sat down with the matrix and figured out, well, how else did they weigh these things? And depending on your opinion, whether something was competitive or not, that could all be moved around. But in the end, the first two criteria were the most important. So overall, from that work group, I felt like I could not provide proper consultation. So my consultation was that I could not consult, and that is why I basically resigned. We were to review. Well, remember, I'm a scientist, and for me to review, I need to see all the data. And that doesn't mean... words in my mouth as far as what I feel the review process is. That is my review process. It's part of my nature. I don't mean to imply that I feel that ICA did a horrible job and this is all wrong and that it's not completely transparent. We've been trying to move in that effort, but there's some difficulties with it all as well. Now, so that's why I resigned from the work group. As the chair of AC, just as all these crises were coming into play, I do feel as that AC is somewhat the guardian of the core principles. And those are principles. They're not the rules. They are guiding principles. I necessarily, personally, do not agree with all those, but they were put into play before I even arrived here at Davis. But as the chair of that committee, that's how I operate the committee, is that we are to oversee those principles. So as the budget crisis occurred, particularly strongly once the PE program got cut, then I was in the act of putting together a subcommittee that would be able to work and roll up their hands and go in and work with ICA. However, at that same time, Vice Chancellor Wood put together his own ICA work group, and so basically what would have been a charge of AC got transferred to this ICA work group. The ICA work group did not really end up how I hoped it would end up as far as rolling up our sleeves and getting involved, and that's partly why I ended up resigning from the work group. So as far as AC, we do see ourselves as trying to take care of those guiding principles. But on the other hand, so I forced our committee to sit there and say, we might have to give on one of these principles. Not that anybody wanted to whatsoever, but when push comes to shove, you're going to have to give on something. And so I basically forced the committee to make some decisions, and that led to the letter that has gone to the Vice Chancellor. And remember, we are advisory. We're not executive. So the advice to the Chancellor is weighed, and actually we answer to Vice Chancellor Wood, is weighed with a lot of other factors. And what I found out from the advice from AC was not completely in agreement with what some of the students wanted as far as the students at large. So one of our advice was to not to tier, and that we were kind of willing to let go of a sport provided tiering was not involved, and that all the student athletes had good coverage so that they wouldn't have to go out and find a second job. How are you going to work a second job and be a student athlete? That makes it difficult. So we weighed a lot of those aspects. So overall, I think probably like with most cuts that are going on in campus, perhaps they could be done a lot better if we had the time to do them. Remember, there was a lot of pressure from the students involved to make a decision as well. So that came into play also. Overall, I'd like to see a more thorough analysis of the whole situation. I would certainly like to see all sports stayed. I don't know if that is a possibility, but certainly I would hope we could be able to take the time to overview the process a little bit more, because it directly involves the students so much as opposed to some of the other programs that are on campus. So that's overall what I think you wanted to hear from me, and I'm quite willing to answer any questions with the time left.
In regards to tiering, I think that most student athletes here would agree that I think we'd all be willing to tier the sports if it would save all 27. Do you think that that would be something that the advisory committees would be in support of, or?
Yeah, so you just have to evaluate how much would you have to tier to do that. There's a lot of money involved. And with that tiering, can you still stay in Title IX compliance? And that is a difficult trick. So I think when people have made the comments, oh, it's complicated, giving the